You helped us through the dark days of apartheid's vicious awfulness. Now we have another scourge. This time it is a disease, HIV/AIDS, which in fact may succeed where apartheid failed.
Let's pinch the men in Africa to wake up, because it's the men who are resisting. The men are the ones who are stubborn to infect the wives and the children.
It's true.
You know? So we have to pinch the man with light and say, look, this is not fantasy, this is reality. You know? You have to protect yourself.
The fact is, Ed has to deal with sex, and no one wants to speak about it. No one wants to face it. And even me, as a woman talking about AIDS in Africa, people, they said to me, you have AIDS. I'm like, okay, if that's what it's gonna take for you to realize that if you don't protect your life, there can be next Africa.
This song came from a statement that Mr. Desmond Tutu said, and that's why I call it Victory is Won. He said, at the peak of brutality in Africa, South Africa, in the early 80s, when the enemy was taking our children away from us to work in the diamond mines, he had his knee on our throat, suffocating the life from us. And we looked at the enemy at that point. We looked at the enemy in his eyes, and we said to him, join us in our celebration. We already won, you already lost. Victory is won.
Apartheid tried to destroy our people, and apartheid failed dismally. If we don't act against HIV/AIDS, it may succeed. For it is already decimating our population, and especially young, active, productive adults, backbone of our farming, backbone of our industry. It's teachers dying, young teachers, nurses. And of course, you've got all the statistics, 16,000 people every day are newly infected. 600 die in South Africa alone daily. And think of the HIV/AIDS orphans that are produced. We are told that every 14 seconds, one orphan is produced in Africa. Those are statistics, and it is easy to shut off, and enclose yourself in statistics, and it can be so deadening. But how about if you put the name of your loved one, the face? Graça Machel, married to Nelson Mandela, said, how about putting the face of someone you love on those statistics and think that that little child who rushes out to embrace you when you come back from work could be HIV positive, could, if you died, become an orphan?
I hear that there can be 60,000 or 600,000 orphans in Africa, and I see a face immediately. I see a little brown face with big, gorgeous eyes and little smile with that impish look. And I don't need to know that person to feel that person's pain. I can think of my own 3 children and that I would never ever want them to not have me and Carlos there for them. And so I don't need to know, I just can feel it immediately.
And what they have found is that Batologuti are HIV positive. Can you see that? Do you know what it means?
Telling a pregnant woman that she is infected with HIV/AIDS is the most difficult part of Rachel Pello's job.
It's not about dying, but it's about restructuring your life, changing your behaviors and going on with life. And, you know, that's what I've been doing, and that keeps me positive all the time.
Rachel Pello is a HIV/AIDS counselor at Johannesburg's Baragwanath Hospital. It is the largest hospital in Africa and one of the few facilities that offers pregnant women free AIDS treatment, including drugs like AZT and nevirapine, which can prevent the transmission of the disease to unborn children. Medical studies have shown that these drugs can reduce the risk of mother-to-fetus transmission by 50%.
Do you think it might have been better to get your results sometime later at another visit? No. Why?
As a counselor, Rachel helps pregnant women deal with both the medical and psychological consequences of AIDS.
It is hard, but because of I've taken up to myself that I want to do a change out there. I want to empower people.
It is a job for which she is uniquely qualified.
I found out that I was HIV positive when I was pregnant, when I went for my antenatal visit.
Rachel Pello was one of the first women recruited by the doctors at Baragwanath Hospital to try the drug AZT, and as a result, her son is not infected with the AIDS virus.
How much, baby? I was very happy. I was very happy and very excited.
In a way, she is one of the lucky few.
Knock, knock.
Here at Cotlands, a private care facility for orphans, more than 100 babies died from AIDS last year.
Okay.
Do you expect her to live?
No.
Health workers like Cotlands director Jackie Schumann has learned to accept the harsh reality of AIDS in this part of the world. For most pregnant mothers, there are no drugs to prevent the spread of AIDS. For most children with AIDS, drugs that could help them to live longer are just too expensive. As a result, AIDS babies continue to be born, and most will die before they are 2 years old.
You know, the treatment's never really been an option for us, so we actually haven't even discussed it, because you can't go down there if only we had that road, because I think that would make our job very difficult. So we accept what we've got and we work within those guidelines.
Oh, Ndulama!
Rachel works a couple of days a week at Cotlands, in part because she sees in these children what could have been her son's fate.
I always believe that I do understand what they're going through. So somehow it's seeing the reality happening and to comfort someone. As I was fortunate maybe having given treatment and giving back to a negative child. So coming here is just to share with the children, you know. Even if I won't say it by word, but touching them somehow, it is saying something to them.
Children dying from AIDS is perhaps the greatest tragedy of the epidemic. But the possibility that some, like Rachel Pello's son, are being saved offers a glimmer of hope for the future. Rodeo Drive in LA's most exclusive shopping district, an unlikely place you'd think to find angels, but they are here. The City of Angels has produced its own group of musicians and actors who are reaching out to fight AIDS in Africa.
You know, I love the song. You know, anytime you talk about angels and what they want to do with us as humans, I'm in. And, you know, the song is very haunting.
I feel like fire guiding you back home as darkness falls.
The world is facing the worst health crisis in modern history. Already, 24 million members of the human family have died of AIDS. That's more than the combined populations of Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Boston, Milwaukee, Atlanta, San Diego, Columbus, I'm not through, Charlotte, San Jose. Pretty bad. In sub-Saharan Africa, there are 29 million people living with HIV/AIDS. AIDS is decimating families and destabilizing nations. There are cities in Uganda where only the booming business are the undertakers and the coffin makers. In Zimbabwe, families now have to bury their dead deep enough to accommodate a second body on top of the first, because the country has simply run out of room for the graves.
I have been living with HIV for over 23 years, most of my adult life. I don't remember what it was like to live without AIDS. I know firsthand what can happen when people with AIDS have the love and support of family and friends and access to appropriate care and treatment. And I've seen firsthand what happens when we do not.
AIDS is a fire raging out of control, threatening to consume our world. There are, however, reasons to have hope. AIDS is a disease that can be prevented and it can be treated. We can save lives if we all take action, and that's why we are so desperately here today.
My name is Blair Underwood, and I'm the Vice Chair of Artists for New South Africa. ANSA is a nonprofit organization dedicated to combating the African AIDS pandemic, as well as redressing the social and economic legacies of apartheid. We also work to protect and further civil rights here in the U.S. We raise and grant millions of dollars to effective South African organizations which fight AIDS, improve education, combat poverty, serve at-risk youth, offer training in journalism and the arts.
It's strange to stand in a room talking about AIDS and being forced to put a smile on your face. And let me tell you why. Good morning, I'm C.C.H. Pounder, and I have the privilege of telling you about the remarkable initiative Carlos and Deborah Santana are launching with ANSA. Carlos and Deborah are people who put their money where their mouth and hearts are. This initiative makes the depth of their commitment to fighting AIDS abundantly clear. Carlos and Deborah are giving the entire net proceeds of the 203 U.S. Summer Santana Shaman Tour to launch ANSA's Amandla AIDS Foundation. The money Carlos and Deborah donate will go directly to South African organizations working on the front lines to combat HIV/AIDS. In Zulu and Xhosa, Amandla means strength and power. It is used as a rallying cry. Amandla, Awetu, power to the people. Empowerment is the purpose of the Santana Answer Initiative. Empowerment of South Africans in their struggle against HIV/AIDS, and empowerment of people here in the U.S. to take action.
And Carlos and I usually try to stay quiet when we give anything. But this was a different cry. This is a much deeper, more serious need for us to say that we do stand in solidarity with people who are living with HIV/AIDS, and especially with those who are being orphaned and those who have already left. So this is a tremendous gesture of love from us to all of you. And we thank you so much for helping any way you can to fight the AIDS pandemic.
We invite you to create a masterpiece of joy in this planet. When you get to the other side, they will not ask you whether you're a Christian or Mexican or Buddhist or Muslim. They will ask you, what did you do with the energy and light and love that we gave you? And so this is what we love to do. Thank you.
It is almost inexpressible for you to have wanted to donate the net proceeds of your summer tour for fighting AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa, and especially in South Africa, is an example of staggering generosity. Thank you a million times over. We overcame apartheid. You helped us to overcome apartheid. We are going to overcome HIV/AIDS. And with this incredible gift, we are going to begin to show that you can turn it around. It has already been turned around in places like Uganda. And even in South Africa itself, where they have given people the right medicine, antiretroviral drugs, the thing is changing. And so we come to you and we say, hey, pack out those concerts, man, and make sure we really get a lot of money. We are going to overcome HIV/AIDS.
Mama say, mama makusa. Mama say, mama sa, mama kusa. Mama say, mama makusa. Mama say, mama sa, mama kusa. Mama say, mama makusa. Mama say, mama sa, mama kusa. Mama say, mama makusa. Mama say, mama sa, mama kusa. Mama say, mama makusa. Mama say, mama sa, mama kusa. Mama say, mama makusa.
you so much. We want to invite some friends to say a few words to you. This is One Take Long. We want to play everything that you want to hear, but first it's important that you do listen to these words. These words are for your heart and as well as for the well-being of this planet. Listen to these sisters and brothers and please honor them. It won't take long, but just open your heart and your mind to what they're saying because it's a healing thing. Thank you so much.
Good evening, I'm Alexandra Paul.
And I'm Phil Wilson.
And I'm Latanya Richardson Jackson, and we are board members for Artists for New South Africa. Was that song amazing? Carlos has asked me to talk about an issue that's really important to him and his wife Deborah and to us, and it's the global AIDS pandemic. Here's the situation. Already 24 million members of our human family have died of AIDS. That's the equivalent of every person in LA, Orange County, San Diego, and the Bay Area. Today, there are 42 million people living with HIV/AIDS, and unless significant action is taken now, by 2010, there will be 100 million people with AIDS and 40 million children orphaned by the disease worldwide. But HIV can be prevented, and AIDS can be treated. That's why it's essential, and it's reasonable to have hope.
Carlos and Deborah Santana are putting their hope into action in an extraordinary way. They're giving the entire net proceeds of the U.S. Santana Tour to organizations working on the front lines to combat AIDS in South Africa. South Africa has more people living with AIDS than any other country in the world. Archbishop Tutu calls AIDS the new apartheid because most people with AIDS are poor and they're dying because they don't have access to medicine. We cannot stand by and let that happen. The Santana Tour is educating people about AIDS and also about the work of Artists for a New South Africa because we are working to defeat this most deadly threat to South Africa that it has ever faced. But we need your help. Tonight, there are information tables where you can find out how to take action on AIDS. I want to thank you, we want to thank you because you've already helped by buying a ticket to this concert. You have made sure that money will go to fighting AIDS. But we need you to stay involved. So join us in calling on our government to do more. President Bush has pledged $15 billion to fight AIDS, but he has just allocated 0.3% of that money into this year's budget, just 0.3% of his promise, because promises are just words. It is up to us to make sure that President Bush's promise is kept.
This call is not about pity, it's not about charity. It's about doing the right thing. Future generations will ask, where were you when millions of people were dying from AIDS? Where were you when your brothers were dying and your sisters were dying? Join us so that together we can answer, we were there. We were helping. We were doing everything in our power to stop AIDS. Now, let's put our hands together for a great artist and a great activist, the one, the only, Carlos Santana!
I was blessing a new facility, and the people in the community, some of them were behaving in the conventional way of ostracizing people who have AIDS. And on this occasion, there were some in the community who said, we want to stand by those who will have the courage to stand up and say they have AIDS. And there were young people who came and said, I have AIDS. I'm HIV positive. And they were embraced by the community because there were some brave people who were prepared to stand up. And that makes you feel good. That makes you feel good about humankind. And you say, there are many awful things that happen in the world, but there are so many, many, many beautiful things too.
In the past, you've said that the South African government needs to stop fiddling and get on with providing antiretroviral drugs to everybody in South Africa. Has there been any progress made on that situation?
We wish that we hadn't dilly-dallied as much as we have, but I think now that they are accepting the so-called conventional views about the disease, and many of the different provinces are saying they are rolling out, as far as they are able, the drugs to people who need them. And I hope, that will be something we do like greased lightning.
Baba